You're watching Domed in Cuse, the quick hit podcast for real Orange fans. If you love Cuse sports, hit like and subscribe. Let's go Orange.
All right. So we're hopping back in on the Domed In Pod. Here we are talking about that Tennessee preview. So gonna be a big game in week one. Now, I don't want to get this out of the way by just saying that I am hyped for this kind of game. I think it's awesome that we're playing in this kind of game. Tennessee is going to be really, really tough. It's a great program. I'm a big Josh Heupel guy. I think Heupel is a great coach, one of the better college football coaches out there, and huge mistake by Oklahoma not having him as their coach. But Venables is great too. But I'm a big Heupel guy. I think there's a lot that he's done with this program that also he's going to continue to do with this program. This is going to be a little bit of a transition year for Tennessee, moving on from Nico at the last minute because of a lot of NIL shit. And I know a lot of people in Tennessee are like, who knows, Nico, whatever, he wasn't even that good last year. He was a freshman last year because he redshirted. So he was a freshman last year, and he was pretty good. He had that team in the college football playoff as a freshman. He gave me a lot of DJ Uyunglele vibes, DJU vibes. So DJU, though, the thing about him was DJ never progressed. DJ was the same guy his first year at Clemson that he was at Oregon State, that he was at Florida State. Like, the guy never really got significantly better. So Amaliava has a really high ceiling if he can continue to get better. And they're going to lose his production in the passing game. They're also going to lose about 300 or so rushing yards from him, which is big. And in Heupel's system, it's a quick read system. It's a quick offense. It's a lot of RPOs. It's a lot of play action, one side of the field. So it's a quick read for the QB. And that kind of stuff Imaliava was good at, but it also really limits your turnover. So I think Imaliava only threw 5 picks last year. As we move on to this year, they have a new quarterback, Joey Aguilar, who's from App State. He had a little bit of a turnover issue last year. He was less than 2-1 with his TDs to interceptions, and that was at App State against lesser competition. We'll see what that looks like for him this year, but for the most part, he's a guy that is pretty consistent. He's pretty decent, and we'll see if he can kind of make that step to the next level from App State. They're also going to be replacing a lot of talent across the board on offense. Running back Dylan Sampson's now in the NFL, being replaced by a kid who was a freshman last year, Deshaun Bishop, who is a one-cut speedster. And he was good last year, almost 400 or so rushing yards, and he's going to be big for them, I think, this year. A new offensive line, pretty much. Left tackle's coming back. He's a stud, Lance Hurd. And then in receiver, Charles Brazel, he was a guy who had 300 or so receiving yards last year. Pretty good player. They also have a sophomore, Mike Matthews, who was a 5-star, almost left the program but returned. He's a kid who could take kind of that leap, as you're saying, because now there's more opportunities for him. He'll probably get the looks at wide receiver 1. But where Tennessee is going to be their best is really on the defensive side. Bryson Eason comes back as kind of that defensive tackle. He's one of the better players, I think, in college football this year. He's going to, I think, rise up draft boards because he could play, across the defensive line, but really that tackle spot where he's going to be a run stuffer. They also have Joshua Josephs, who was really productive despite the fact that he was playing with James Pierce, who was one of a first-round pick, right? One of the better defensive ends. So he was productive last year as well. And then Arian Carter was their starting linebacker last year. He's a star, that kid. He made every tackle you could make on defense, and he's going to be coming back. He's impressive when you watch the film on him. And then at cornerback, Jermod McCoy. He's sick. He is sick, man. I'm a big fan of his. And then finally, they had this freshman kid, Boo Carter, who came in, played a lot of snaps for them as a freshman. He'll probably line up in that nickel spot. He'll also do some punt returning. So this team's kind of loaded across the board with talent. They're replacing a lot of offensive talent, but the guys they have coming in, have pedigree from high school and should be able to play up. Question at quarterback with a kid transferring from App State. But then the defense is solid, man. A lot of guys returning, a lot of talent across the board on defense. So that's kind of my Tennessee preview. as we go, and we can kind of talk now about how to attack them.
Totally. I mean, I think that was pretty great run through there on the 30,000-foot view of what Cuse is up against here. I think, honestly, a couple things you hit on. I honestly think there's a little revisionist history going on around how Nico played last year as a freshman. I mean, he was a freshman in the SEC, and they won 10 games and made the playoff. Like, yes, they were a good team. That defense was awesome last year. But that doesn't happen that often with freshman quarterbacks in the SEC, right? It's a 10-win team. He played well enough at times to really put them in positions. I mean, look, that game against Ohio State, he is not the reason they lost that game. The entire team no-showed in the playoff there, and that was not a Nico issue. I think they've honestly taken a pretty big step back at quarterback, and we'll get into that. But Aguilar has been a productive guy at the college level. He does turn the ball over a lot. And that typically, like you said, it's not something that's typically meshed with a Josh Heupel offense, right? Like the worst years that Heupel's had at Tennessee is when he just hasn't had a quarterback who's taking care of the ball. Joe Milton, right? And so that's
Hendon Hooker. He's a guy who ended up producing in the offense, but he's a guy who came in.
Yeah.
With issues.
And so
and that was early on in Heupel, right? And this is kind of why I call it a transition year for Tennessee.
Yeah. But like you said, man, this is a team that has honestly kind of flipped that identity to the defensive side of the ball. Like this is going to be a scary defense to have to open up the season against. Like, yes, they lost Pierce, they lost the other defensive tackle, who was I think another second-round pick to the Chiefs. They returned several guys who were productive on that defensive line. I think the big thing when Pierce was getting drafted was he played less than 50% of the snaps last year on that defensive line.
And they're going to rotate.
It's a very deep, talented group there, so it's going to be a quick test for this newly built Cuse offensive line. And then just on the other side of the ball, it's a game where we're going to want to make sure we tackle and take the ball away, like E-Rob is saying.
Right, so I think that's where we start, right? I think that to have a shot in this game, we're going to need to force them into passing situations, and we're going to need to take the ball away. I mean, I think really our only opportunity in this game is if they have a few turnovers. Like, they're going to need to have 2 or 3 turnovers to keep us in this game, because I do think they will be able to run on us. And that's probably just because they have a huge offensive line and then also just a really good running back. And this is an SEC team, and, we've tried to get bigger to combat playing against these type of guys, but this is still year 2 for Fran. So to say that he's gotten us all the way there, all the way where he wants to get us is just not true. Right, and we're going to be better, I think, this year. We're going to be bigger this year, and we hope E-Rob is going to be able to, improve a defense when he was more working with leftovers last year, and now he's working with a little bit more guys that fit his scheme. So we'll see how that works. But again, we're not fully developed on the defensive side or the offensive side, for that matter of fact. So key one to this game for us is going to be turnovers. We're going to need to create turnovers. We're going to need to create havoc, and part of that is also tackles for losses, sacks, all that kind of stuff. I think key number 2, and this is going to be the tough part, I think, for us, and you were kind of saying how our offensive line is going to hold up. We're going to need to be able to run the ball, because we're going to need to keep this team honest. If we get into a lot of obvious passing downs, this team has some stud corners, Boo Carter, Jermod McCoy, guys who can make plays. And that could get very dangerous for Angeli, because they are going to make plays if Angeli has pressure against him, is in obvious passing downs. And so it's going to be key for Angeli to use the tight end, the running backs in the passing game.
Totally.
To really keep them honest, but it's going to be really important for us to be able to run the ball so that we're not in 3rd and 10 all the time. 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, that's where we want to be.
Totally. I agree, but I honestly, I think this is a game that's going to put the defense to a test quick against the run, honestly. I think Tennessee may go through a little bit of a transition too with how their offense is built. I don't think they don't have the horses on the outside last year that they had. Squirrel White's gone, Dante Thornton's in the NFL. Like they lost talent, and with Dylan Sampson gone, I think they're going to lean on those 2 running backs you mentioned there. I think Lewis is the other guy who's the bigger kid who's in between the tackles runner. Like they've got a two-headed monster at back here with a couple sophomores that we need to get on the ground.
I mean, Bishop scares me because if our linebackers aren't making tackles, which we've talked about, it's the most unknown part of our defense. If our linebackers aren't making tackles, he's a guy who, once he gets in the open field, he is fast, man. So he's gone. So
Yeah,
if we're not making tackles and we're not attacking the line of scrimmage on defense, that there's potential for him to hit us with home runs. And if we can't stop the run, we have no shot, right?
yeah,
So if we can't even force them into passing downs, we're going to be in trouble. And then on
totally.
offense, again, we've talked about this. You can't. I know we talked about having to run in the short pass game. You can't be scared of going over the top. You're going to have to take some chances against this team. You're going to have to try to see if you can take the top off the defense. So those are really my three keys. Can you stop the run on defense and get turnovers or create
Yeah.
havoc plays at the very least on defense? And then on offense, you have to be able to run the ball and execute in the short passing game. And then three, you're going to have to keep them honest deep down the field. So that's really where I see the keys to this game.
Yeah, honestly, I totally agree with that three pack there. I think you hit a good point there. Like teams are going to jump us on the short passing game, and it's going to be important that we do set up shots down the field. And Coach Nixon was really good at that last year, setting up those shots. I think we've got some horses. I mean, we're hoping Jonte Cook is kind of that guy this year that can take the top off the defense a bit. We've got some other guys who've shown that ability. Daryl Gill, Hatcher, some others, like guys who make plays down the field. Line's going to have to protect to make that happen, and that's going to be an uphill battle week one. But you can't go into games just not being a threat to get vertical down the field, especially in the college game, like we've talked about, man. Where it doesn't necessarily have to be a catch down the field; it can be a pass interference penalty
Yeah.
that gets you moving down the field, man. These are college kids. Like mistakes happen on plays down the field. It's a fact of the game.
And I want to end it with where I started it. I'm super pumped Syracuse is playing in this type of game. It's a marquee matchup, the first Saturday of college football. It's good for our brand. Even if we go get our breaks beat in by Tennessee, I think it's great for us. It kind of shows Fran and us we're a serious program, and it's cool. I like it.
I think it's that anytime, anywhere mentality. You know, it's like that's the sort of thing that Fran wants to build at Syracuse. He said, why not Syracuse the day he took the job? And like that he's immediately getting on the front foot with that. And again, regardless of what happens, I think ultimately I'm hopeful this is a competitive game. And I think there's ways that Cuse can make it that way. But to your point, it's great that we're playing in a marquee game on really the first big weekend of the season, you know?
Let's win it. Let's win it.
Yeah.